Very bizarre. Sorry. Oh, sorry for that. Hi. Morning. So it's not going to be a super long stream this morning, mainly because there's not much news. But over the weekend, I watched this great new TV series. Best I describe it is, if you've seen True Detective, it's kind of that. There's a few too many. I don't know. There's quite a few twists and turns along the way. But the reason I watched it was based in Yosemite. So let's see what it is. Browser transition. It's called Untamed. I'm just going to play the opening sequence, and hopefully I don't get in trouble. But the opening sequence is up there with, I don't know, Vertical Limit, Cliffhanger. You've got to watch it, guys. Let's see what it does. It's gripping and hilarious, but I think the climb's actually quite good in it. It's only a brief bit of climbing there. I mean, the view is just incredible. And this is what this series does. It's just got amazing footage of this. You can't. I mean, it's a well-written thing. If you like lots of twists and turns, but in a beautiful setting. Do I recognise this climber in here? I kind of feel that he's actually a climber, but I can't tell.
You're about
thinking
to be
CGI
left in
myself,
line.
but we'll see. You gotta love that, placing that cam right next to a bolt. That's, but you know, Hollywood and all that.
What do we got left? Only about 300 feet.
It's so touch and go. It's only got 3. I mean, look at it. He's like right. Yeah. Regardless, it's still pretty impressive. Anyway, sorry, it obviously doesn't like me watching that. It's probably realised that I'm actually throwing it out somewhere, and I don't know. the reason I wanted to show it is there's actually this bit the woman falls down, gets tangled in their ropes. Oh, it's a mess, and the the story starts from there basically. Um, and yeah, it was just I really love Yosemite. I've spent a lot of my life um, there. I spent like 3 or 4 months there climbing. So yeah, if you want to see what Yosemite's like, and you like a little bit of a murder mystery with lots of too many twists and turns almost, it's really good. I really enjoyed it. So the other tiny bit of news is uh, this is a friend, Rob Johnson. He does like filming stuff, but so he also does a little bit of stuff for the national park. And this is a video that he's done for the national park and Clanbarris Rescue Team. It's very interesting in that it basically just tells people don't be idiots. But unfortunately, even in the TikTok generation, I think it's probably too long for a TikToker to actually watch.
The mountains look wonderful in Instagram photos. The reality is, if you get injured, it's going to be cold.
There you go. You're going to look great in the Instagram photos, but when it happens, you're just going to be miserable. So yeah, they're just trying to, I think they're trying to combat the TikTok, Instagram generation that just seem to, the thing is with short content videos is you kind of don't see the hard work that's gone in. You know, you could see me talk about climbing and just think, oh yeah, you know, but actually I climbed all over the world at a high level from sort of 98 when I left university to 2005, 2006 when I got qualified as a mountain instructor. Before I became an actual instructor, and I think even instructors these days seem to rush into these things, but let's just carry on with this.
You're going to be wet. It's going to be incredible.
So that was really important. I think it was have the right equipment, know the weather, and have the right skills. And you know, you take away one of those, and you kind of like you're instantly kind of putting yourself at greater risk. And if you have all three of them, then you're less likely to kind of get into an accident. So yeah, that's just. So that's that one. Very kind of quick, and then I just thought I'd end on critiquing my own videos. So I didn't transition that across. Yeah, so you've been looking at me, sadly. So we'll just, where are we going to? 5. Cool. So these were videos that I put together years ago, and they are aimed at just introducing people to trad climbing. So I just think they're interesting just to have a look what I did all those years ago. Yeah, so the trad
So for me, this is like the basic kind of starter rack. So if you're going to start out trad climbing, this is like the minimum of what you need. So, I mean, if I start off, I've got like a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, 5, a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I've got one each of the wires, and I've actually got like some wild country ones and some DMM ones. And what I find is that actually the wild country ones are just that little bit lighter. The DMM ones have this little groove in at times, and so I try to have a variety, and especially like if you have a look at
Yeah, so this is kind of the basic stuff. Is like, you know, I've given a basic rack, so I've only got like a rack of 1 to 10, whereas I would climb with like over 20, just over 21, and I will have various. I'll have like try to have DMM and wild country. The reason I think wild country are slightly lighter is they're a little bit smaller, less width, but yeah.
you know, the profile of these. So this is a wild country 10, which has got a slightly thinner profile. I quite like having one of each on my rack. So this is like the basic rack, but that's the difference. Is like a DMM is wider.
Yeah, I think it's almost like I probably went in a little bit too much. It was probably just because I had those were the ones that I put on the rack that day. But you know, the simplest solution would just be to have a rack of 1 to 10 of DMM, because you can get deals on racks of 1 to 10 wires, and then the next time you would buy a different brand, or you could even have the same one. You know, my ability to kind of look at the placement, pick the right wire, is kind of a level of expertise. And you know, often what you want to start with is something super simple, so just a rack of 1 to 10 of the same design, really.
Than the wild country. So when you place it differently, I've also, you know, suggest that you get like a good rack of cams. Now, when you start out, you might not get these. You might get like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You might not even get 5. You might use hexes instead, and that's totally up to kind of like your price. But you know, you definitely want to have.
I meant your budget, but obviously, you know, we get distracted sometimes, and it's like, I guess, yeah. So it wasn't similar words.
Like at least 3 cams and a couple of hexes. They're bigger than your wires, so this is why I say you can get rid of these and possibly this one, because you know that will go down to about the size of that. So you know, you're looking for stuff that's a little bit bigger than your wires. Okay, on top of that, you're going to want about 8 quick draws. Now, quick draws or extenders are these, and what we do is we clip them into our gear so we can then clip the rope in. And because the gear, clip them into the rope and then clip the rope in, we clip them in because the line isn't going to be as straight on a route. So you might get gear over here and gear over here, and actually what to do is extend it. And so what you want is at least one of these which extends to this length, and you can put it away by popping that through and clipping it back. So that's like what I call an extender. I then would get at least 2 of these, which are like 25cm quick draws. Then you want a good few of these, which are like 20cm quick draws. So 1, 2, 3, and then, you know, last but not least, a couple of these little short ones. And that, you know, I've done a quick draw review, so you can see what kind of draws I recommend for that. And the last thing is I've got a sling, like a 60cm sling, which I would wear over my shoulder, and then 2 120 slings that I wear over my shoulder. Now, as you kind of get more experience, what you might want to do is start getting more cams. So you might get the whole rack of DMM cams, so you sort of go up from that.
I mean, yeah, you might not go for that big doffing cam first. I should have maybe highlighted that. I might do it in a minute, but you definitely want to maybe go the opposite way. So smaller cams. Let's see what I do.
And then because this is the smallest cam, what I might do is I then get like something a little bit smaller, And then if you're really going for it, so this is kind of, we're moving into now.
This was years ago. This was before the DMM Dragons come out. I would probably go for some of those now because yeah, I really love them. But I've still actually got these. Yeah, 5 years ago. It's all getting a little bit tired now. I'll have to go shopping at some point.
Like the rack I would use for my trad climbing, so smaller again with these like BD tiny Camelots. Two seconds. And then for me, I actually end up using over a double rack of wire. So if I take this, I would add that one to there. I'm actually going to take this one off, put this one on, and put this one on. So this is an interesting one. This is a offset, sort of like almost a super.
Yeah, so this is where like my rack is probably super overly complicated for people that are starting out, and actually, you know, I've got things like those super rocks that are sort of half super lightweight versions of normal wires. Again, for most people, keep it really simple to start with. You don't need all these fancy wires. It's just that's me. That's equipment that I've got over the years. Sometimes I've bought it, sometimes I've been given it for review, sometimes it's fallen off the back of a DMM dispatch lorry. No, it hasn't. People at DMM are very nice to me, and in the past have found it within themselves to let me have some things. I had a friend that was working for, I think, Wild Country, which is why I got the Wild Country super lights. Yeah.
Light one, so they are really light. So that's my rack of large wire. So I now go have large and then medium wires. So medium. I'll take some of these off, so medium.
Lots of faffage, sorry about that, but yeah, I'm just trying to go between like
small.
So
although this is actually a medium size, it's actually quite small when you put it in profile. So I now end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 small, 1, 2, 7 medium, and 7 large. And because I'm now using some of these like super lightweight offsets, I'm carrying more wires. I'd also start adding, you know, loads more quick draws. I'd have definitely 2 of these extendable ones. I then usually have like another one of those and another one of these. I also would recommend you all having like a HMS carabiner. And then, you know, when you get into harder stuff, you definitely want a rack of.
Yeah, you don't really need like those RPs till you're sort of well on your way to sort of like, I think maybe there's a couple of VSs where it helps if there is you've got RPs. Yeah, I'm just thinking of Yogi, but even then you can actually protect it with some small wires. It's just, you can get like a couple of RPs maybe 6 inches above the lowest decent rock one, but yeah.
RPs, and so one of the things you want to, you know, you go from the start out rack to something this size with, you know, something like in the range of 14 quick draws. Weight does become an issue, and so using these wire gates with like slings becomes prominent. You know, I do have some sort of more sport climbing draws, but again they're kind of still have one snap gate on it. And so I also have things like, you know, when I bought these, I bought the right colour carabiner to go.
I think this bit's really interesting there. having, it seems like a totally anally retentive thing to do. And if you looked around my house, if I put this camera in any other direction, you would realize that I am not like OCD in any way. I probably live life on the opposite end of the spectrum until I go climbing, and then I become anally retentive about racking up. And so having the right color carabiners, I'm probably going to mention this, is just means that when you look down, you kind of like, if you know your rack, you know what you're looking at.
With each cam, so when I look down, I see I want a purple cam, or I want red, or I want gold. I see that. I also, you know, these wires are color coded, so I know that if I need if this one doesn't fit, I know I need to look for this shade of blue, and which means I've got this one, or actually this one, that are that shade of blue. Similarly, if yellow's too small, I go to the same color, or if it's like this but slightly offset, I then have these offsets, and you know, so that's another thing. So I've got like a total variety of different gear, so that I've got as many eventualities as possible. I mean, I'm not carrying the world, but this is actually a reasonable weight rack for me to carry up any trad route. And so, you know, we might only start off with this much with half the wires, but you know, the idea is as you develop as a climber, you can then start adding to your rack, and you'll know what you need and what you don't. And so to start with, that rack of 1 to 10, 3 cams, maybe a couple of hexes and 8 quick draws should get you up most sort of like easy pitches on a single pitch route. When it comes to doing more multi-pitch stuff, you might need a couple more carabiners just to make belays, so the person that leads through has it. But you know, and you might need a few more wires. But you know, if you're going to start out doing single pitch routes, then this is totally adequate.
In this video, I'm going to show you how you can give yourself a penetration test completely for free across your external attack surface, both IPs and website.
I'm not interested in a penetration test, thank you. So probably the most common element of a rock climber's arsenal. Whoa, managed to pick a real nice blowy day, didn't I, to come and place wires. It's going to annoy the hell out of you. The wind buffeting, I'd imagine. Wires. When I was describing the racks, talked about, you know, getting a good size of rack. Now, when it comes to placing them, what we're looking for is both of the sides. So if you place them this way, both cheeks have as much contact area as possible, that it's a nice almost wedge shape. You can place them this way round, so in a crack like so. And essentially you just want to go through and find the perfect size for the perfect crack, and that can take a degree of looking. So what I tend to advise people, if you have large, medium and small, you'll be like, okay, it's a small size, so you pick up your small ones, and that's going to give you the outside chance of getting the right size. If it's like, it might be I think this is one of my most interesting questions that I get asked, is like, people are like, oh, why don't I just have 1 to 10 on one side and 1 to 10 on the other side? And I'm probably going to explain this in a minute, but I'm going to explain it again now. If you have, what you want is all the small wires, all the medium wires and all the large wires clumped. And people are like, well, if I drop all the small wires, well, you'll still have some mediums which have got a little bit of overlap, but not much. The trick is don't be an idiot and drop stuff, because that's on you. But the thing is, it's about, you know, if you've got a small crack and you've got all of the wires that you have at the time that's small on one carabiner, then you're more likely to find the piece, rather than, you know, coming off 1 to 10 off this side. Oh God, it needs a rock 2. There's not rock 2 on this side. So you then have to put it back, take this one off, and then find the rock 2. Yeah. A medium, or it might be a large. Sometimes you're like, oh, it's a small big, or a big medium, or a big small, and that kind of means there might be a little bit of overlap. But essentially, when you place these, we're going to go into it later, you're going to get these, and when they're in the placement, we're going to shock load. Don't just pull on them or pull on this, because if you do, you end up like falling off backwards. If you just smash down, you end up probably explain this a little bit more, but if you're kind of like doing this, you're just creating a shock load, and you're actually creating quite a big shock load between your arm and the wires, sort of instantly stopping. You're going to put a higher force than if I just kind of like just pull back, and if I'm pulling back, then all of my weight's involved in it, whereas that's just my arm. And so yeah, it helps us not to eject ourselves off backwards, but also you put more force onto the actual placement. The best way I can describe it is you don't get a hammer and push on the nail, you give it a whack. So yeah,
if it comes out, just what I call winding down the window rather than peeling off backwards, which is important when you're lead climbing. And so you seat that in and it should stop moving, and if you wiggle it like this much, this thing shouldn't go like this in the crack. It shouldn't move in the crack, which is what we call well seated. And most importantly is, you know, with all gear placements, the gear around it, sorry, the rock around it should be solid. If you're placing this in non-solid rock, then yeah, it's not going to work. So again, here we are with some wires. We've got a V-shaped crack, and that's kind of key, is that, you know, when I look for stuff, I look for V-shaped cracks. You know, look for, you know, I don't want to place it on that because, you know, that's not very good, but back here is solid, so I think it's going to be one of the big ones. So it's like, it's not that big. Sometimes if I pick that side, I might just try it the other way around. That didn't fit either. So I now need to go for my biggest, and I've got really good contact on that side. I'm then going to get these wires, and
4K would be so much better. I think I must have had like just well, I think I still do have high def, you know, 1080p cameras, but it's only 420p this, so I guess we're losing a little bit.
I'm really gonna, you know, I'm not giving it a little tap. This is like my life is depending on it. 3 really good taps, and as I'm doing that, I'm checking that this doesn't move. If I kind of do it too much, I've probably cold welded this one into place, so it's going to be difficult to get out. But again, what I'm looking for is nice contact area on this side, nice contact on this side, and a degree of overlap. Now I've got really good on this side, not so much on this side, but actually, you know, that's quite a good placement. The thing with not having much contact area often means that the placement is more likely to unseat itself. Now, I would have clipped a runner to that or made a belay out of it, and when you come to take it out, yeah, don't mess about. So again, let's try. You might be able to have got this one in sideways, yeah, so not very good again, but we might have, you know, I was saying that, I've said on another video that these are kind of like the same size, so that's the same size as that, so actually that might have been a much better mini hex placement, but actually it was a totally adequate wire placement. And sometimes you might find that, okay, I'm going to turn this around and have the curves facing the opposite direction, and sometimes you get a better placement that way, sometimes you don't. It's you know, it swings and roundabouts. And so what I'm going to do is go around this crag. I'm going to place a few pieces of gear and for, you know, wires, cams and stuff, and we're just going to look at them and, you know, we'll discuss. So again, we've got some more wear marks here. I'm thinking
This is really interesting. Like, I'm talking about wear marks, and actually on 90%, 95, 99% of the routes that the 99% of the people 99% of the time will be on routes that have been climbed before. You know, there aren't many people that are going out doing new routes or doing routes just after they've been done. And so classic routes, you know, like, they will have had a million rocks placed in them, and actually, because so many people use DMM and wild country, the profile of which, you know, like the concave convex slopes of either side of them are so close that actually a lot of the placements in the UK are shaped like a DMM.
There's sort of a golden one here, Rock 4. Looks, I mean, I can see that in and it's going to be good, but I'm like, well, it's not that much overlap, so maybe I should try the blue, which is the next size up. And again, it's got really good contact on both sides. It's got much more overlap, and I'd be much happier with that. And then if I take that one out and go further back, it's like, I just wonder.
I definitely should have got different. I'm sure I probably did, but it probably did crap. But I probably could do better with my iPhone in 4K now. Like, iPhones, one of the really good things about them is they're amazing at like macro stuff. So like really close up, you know, they can actually focus that distance, whereas a lot of cameras just are rubbish unless you have a specific lens.
Whether this is going to be, because it's quite shallow, is, you know, actually a 5 sideways, or even just wondering what I can get in this back one. So that's a 6, but I've also got, because a 6 offset, which is, you know, a weird shaped one. I think that one might fit in there better because it was shallower further down than it was. So, you know, again, it's all about, you know, having your basics of like 1 to 10, and then, you know, increasing the odds of having, you know, even like these offset super lights give you a slightly different way to place this gear.
Cool, so we're on to the last one, which is camera devices. These are often the most complex in that, you know, there is stuff that moves, they actually create. When you load them, they have to basically load the rock with almost double the force, I'd say, maybe more. Well, at least double, sometimes quadruple what you experience as the person falling.
So when we're placing these, what we're going to do is we look for a nice parallel crack. We can place it in. Now, this bit of rock solid, sometimes you can hear that's a little bit loose, I can move it, but that's solid. And what we,
yeah, you know, if you Ezard used to do like stand up, and he'd be like, he did something about like the Trojan horse, and he's like, this one's hollow, get it open. You know, if the rock's hollow, it's because there's some underlying looseness. And yeah, with cams, you definitely want them between 2 bits of mountain, not a bit of the mountain and a bit of loose flake.
trying to do is when we place these is get them between sort of, if that's 100% open and that's 100% closed, we'll get looking for somewhere between 25 and 75% open. And so this is okay in here. One of the things we want to try and avoid is if we were placing this in lead and like this moves, can you see that it's starting to walk up the crack? Yeah, and potentially out. So if we look carefully at this cam, what you can't probably...
Yeah, so cam walk is a really interesting thing, is that especially as you climb, the rope gets pulled, and yeah, they can either walk in and be virtually impossible to get out, which is often how cams get stuck, or they walk in and pop out. And so the way you overcome that, I might go into it in a minute, I don't know, it's so long ago, is extend. So these have got like a little extender on, but I would also put a quick draw on to add more articulation.
See is this cam lobe isn't actually touching, and these are what we call totally tipped out. And so, you know, it might feel strong, but actually, and if it slips at all, it might slip out. And so this cam was too small for this crack. So fortunately, they come in like multiple different sizes. We could put this one in instead. And like I said, is, you know, solid bits of rock. You know, if you want to know what non-solid rock sounds like, you hear that hollowness? That's what you want to avoid. And then,
That one's hollow.
and you know, if I was using this for a lead piece, I'd be like, well, I'm going to fall down. Don't put them in if you're leading like this, because when you fall, that's going to happen, and it might not work. So you have to think about, you know, if it was a belay and I was going to belay it out this way, then this would be fine. But you know, it needs to be in. You have to think of the direction of fall. It needs to be pulling straight down the shaft. So that's like a good cam placement. It is somewhere in that magic 25 to 75, or like 25 to 75% range. Yeah. And so a lot of people wonder how cams work, and it's a bit like having a cantilever. So the cantilever is like two bits of plank sticking out, joined in the middle, and so when you stand on, they would try and flatten out, but because they hit the side of the crack, they don't actually come out. And so that's essentially what it is. The pivot is right in here, and it's touching just below the pivot, and so you get this magic 120-degree angle. So actually, if I was to weigh 100 kilos on this cam, there's at least 100 kilos pushing that way and 100 kilos pushing that way. And so this is why you need to have solid rock with cams, is that they actually push out with at least twice as much force as you put in. You can, if you're a mathematician, you can sort of show how all these vector angles work, and you can explain to people why that is the case, but all we need to know is that it kind of doubles the load. And actually, if it then gets more complicated, if I was hanging on one side of this and the rope went down to my belayer, so like when I was leading, is I'm on one side of this, you have to view it as a set of scales, so that's, you know.
This is really interesting, in that this whole scale thing is it's based on, if I'm hanging and I weigh 100 kilos, I don't quite, and I go through a carabiner. If you imagine a zero frictionless thing, then because I'm not flying down, if I'm literally hanging on a rope, then there has to be 100 kilos hanging off the opposite side to me. So if I'm hanging here, it goes up and round. So whatever the force that I experience in a fall, which can be like low down up to sort of like 6-7, but usually it's like around 3 kilonewtons. So 3 kilonewtons is instantly 6 kilonewtons, so it's going to be 12 kilonewtons onto pushing outwards, because you've got your load, you have to kind of almost double it, and then it goes up and it needs to push out with twice the amount of what that double is, so it's 4 times.
My weight of 80 kilos, and then there's just under that on this side, because otherwise I'd be going down. So this is like so potentially if I'm 80 kilos, there's, you know, plus 60, which is just under the half, is 140 kilos up here. That's 140, so that's 280 kilos pushing this apart, which is a lot of force. And so sometimes you get these like flakes that are on the surface, and you want to avoid putting cams behind that because they will prise them off, whereas this is like between two bits of the mountain. And
I don't know whether I say it, but that whole flake thing, if you get a wire stuck behind a flake, what you can do is you put a cam in and clip it to you or weight it, you'll be able to get the wire out, because the cam will actually act like a little mini jack and prise a flake apart a little bit.
that's what we're looking for with cams. A parallel crack, two bits of the mountain, and 25 to 75% all cam lobes in place, and that is an ideal cam placement.
That's just it for today. I just thought it would be interesting, rather than those two little bit of news things, you know, like I say, Untamed Netflix. If you want to enjoy amazing scenery and a pretty good story, to be honest, I thought it was quite gritty. Like, if you've ever seen True Detective, I don't think it's as good as you know. I saw the first two True Detectives, and the first one was great. Second one also good, but not as good. And then we did that little thing from Rob, which is about being prepared in the mountains. So right equipment, right skills, know your weather. Don't become a statistic, and be prepared. You know, basically, you need to be prepared to be sat still for 2 to 3 hours if shit goes wrong. And I think there's a lot of people that don't appreciate that and get themselves into some really, really sticky situations. Other than that, we then looked at my old trad videos. This really, for me, as much as you, I'm thinking of redoing them. Definitely could work on like some little diagrams and stuff to help some better, you know, I guess now we can work in 4K, we get a lot more detail. So yeah, I might well do that. But yeah, thanks if you were watching. I hope you found it at least mildly interesting. Maybe you run out of needles to stick in your eye and that's what brought you here. But yeah, if you want to follow us, I do these things occasionally. I'm trying to do them more than like once a week now. But sometimes I just use all motivation to do it. That is life.